Hey traders, welcome back. For those of you that join me for our special non-farm payroll session live with the data, if you didn't catch it, you can grab it over at the Simpler Trading YouTube channel or my mastery folks. The replay will be in the archives later today. Great to see everyone again. All right, so let's take a look at the aftermath of NFP. I did not get enough volatility to get me down to levels that I wanted to get down to. Our overall approach was bullish, whether that be the S&P and the NAS. And the S&P at 830 was borderline. Actually, no, not at the time. It was buy only. And then you can see now we're borderline moving as we go into 835 and 840, losing the uptrend. And then at 840, it's gone, right? So we get that 10-minute neutral look. On the NQ, we had a nice uptrend, borderline losing at around 805. By 810, 815, we're neutral. So the S&P went into the non-farm payroll bullish. The NASDAQ went into the non-farm payroll neutral. Both are open to buys, and the S&P was buy only. And I liked the buy only because another part of the analysis was, are we above the previous session close, the line in the sand, as I like to call it? And we sure were. We sure were. So it makes it easier to say, look, I'm open to shorts in the NQ, but I really like to be a buyer. And that ultimately was, I think, the best direction. However, did not sell off enough for me to get it. And you know what? That's by design. We really want an exhaustive level. Frankly, we've really not gone anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've moved down low enough to create that catapulting effect to the upside. And so really have not gone anywhere. We might see the echo of the 8:30 reaction at 9:30 Eastern with the bell, which should for the most part be maybe a quick move to the downside and then moving higher. Now let's jump on over to another narrative that really gets overshadowed with NFP being released. And that is what's going on with that fruit company. They sell a lot of fruit over here, I think. And this is Apple. You can see Apple's reaction with NFP. You can also see where Apple sits in relation to yesterday's action. You can see the overall movement to the upside. And, ultimately, when we are looking at Apple now, let's move this over and take a look at the daily time frame. I would love to be a buyer in Apple. I mean, ultimately, what I want to do is find a support level that I can get long at. It may not be on the daily time frame. Another place where volatility gave us opportunity was JP Morgan. This came within about 3 cents of our target in the sector secrets mastery. We can see the effect non-farm payroll had initially here on JP Morgan. Like everything else that's trading pre-market, rather thin. But you can see where we are now at 9, up at 135.97. Like I said, about 3 cents from our trigger. I know some of our mastery folks are probably in JP Morgan because it came within that 5 cent alert window. We'll talk about that in the mastery this morning. I would love to take advantage of more of the regional bank weakness, giving us buying opportunities and financials. It's been working out that way since March. I'm going to continue to take advantage of what at this point continues to be the gift that keeps on giving. Let regional bank concerns echo through the market into places that it really doesn't necessarily matter. And that's going to be the big banks. And that's just another example of using sort of an overreaction, an exhaustion level, and taking advantage of it to the upside. All right. So next up is so Apple financials, again, KREXLF, non-farm payroll. We had the ECB yesterday, and a lot of times traders think, well, that's a Forex thing. That's a pre-market thing. Gang, believe me, the ECB is I would say, an order of banks that I'm paying attention to right now. Obviously, FOMC. We can take a look at the ECB, I think is important, and the Bank of Canada. When Christine Lagarde was talking about how much more hawkish the European Central Bank must be to combat their inflation problem, you'll notice, if for those of you that are watching, keeping score at home, the US Treasury market was moving up in yields, even though we're at the tail end of a tightening cycle. So sometimes you're going to see quirky proxy type movement when another central bank is moving sort of the macro picture around. And you'll see that ZB pretty much righted its course afterwards, but I would love to get long the 6E. You want to be long, generally speaking, the currency of a country that's still underway those rate hikes. All right, that brings us to bonds. Gang, as we sink in bonds, I'd love to be a buyer in bonds. ZB is the long bond, ZN is the notes, and ZT is the 2-year. Again, all three of these I'd like to be long. The ZT, though, for those of you that have been checking out this week in the markets, you can see what we're doing over there. You can learn more about it over at thisweekinthemarkets.com. And that's the newsletter here where it's my weekly preparation for what are the narratives that move the week? What are the narratives that are going to continue to move the overall market? So a bigger picture look before we start our trading week. All right. So next up is, let's jump into some questions. Yeah. So I had a question from Aaron who asks, why not sell puts at the level that you want to buy Apple? You could, right? Aaron, you absolutely could. It's not that you can't. I just prefer to go with directional debits for a couple of reasons, Aaron. Number one, if you're going to sell premium, I think selling premium is a little bit more complicated for most traders, just from my observation. Obviously, you're comfortable with it, which is great. Selling premium can be a completely different thing for traders as opposed to just buying a directional debit. There's different risk involved. There's multi-leg strategies and a margin account that is necessary. The reason I recommend cash accounts and directional debits is it makes it easy for traders following me in the Sector Secrets room to not deal with the pattern day trading rule. Futures is not the only place that we have to be to circumnavigate the pattern day trading rule. A cash account in options is a very easy and I think effective way to be an options trader if you're comfortable with long calls, long puts. So yes, absolutely, Aaron. The same spot that I would be getting long a call, you could put on a vertical. Absolutely. I just don't like to sell premium for those reasons that I mentioned because it forces a lot of traders with smaller accounts to not be able to do certain types of frequency of trading because of PDT. So the bottom line is anytime that I want to buy a call, the timing is going to be pretty darn good for taking advantage of selling puts because I'm taking advantage of momentum. So if I've got bearish momentum and I want to buy a call, that call is going to be less expensive. If I've got bearish momentum and I want to sell a put, I'm going to be able to collect more premium on that. So it's ideal in any number of ways as long as we can take advantage of that momentum. So thank you for the question. All right. So let's see, what else do we have here? My folks here in the YouTube. Let's see. Hey there, Steven. 4-hour and daily charts. I'm looking for an entry on GDX and GLD. All right, let's pull up the daily of GC. That's going to map to any type of gold position, whether that be miners, whether that be the ETF. It has now sunk into the daily price movement range. One of the things that I've been mentioning to my traders who are using the daily price movement ranges, and especially looking at gold, is you'll notice there is a yellow and white zone. That is our 68% probability for daily price movement range, right in here and right in here. That's a function of the daily price movement range. Now, I kind of call these the rumble strip. This is where things are moving beyond into 1 and 2 standard deviations. And you can see that's been pretty much where gold has been moving. It's higher volatility right now. So that's going to make gold a little tricky because it is trading with higher volatility at the moment. What's not trading with higher volatility, just to mention this, is silver. Silver's been a little bit better. So if and when silver sinks into this range, I want to be a buyer in silver. So silver's a little bit more where I want to be via SLV. Now, SLV could still be something we could take advantage of XME and GDX and different mining sector ETFs. As far as then looking at a buy on gold, it is a buyable market. I guess my My caveat here is if you want to be long gold, great, but buckle your seatbelts, pop a Dramamine because it's going to be a rougher ride because of the fact that we're moving beyond the typical 68% probability of price movement range and into that first and second standard deviation. So again, directionally clear, it's just a whole lot more volatile compared to silver on the path to higher highs. I do like the long position though. Can we take a look at, and then by the way, so Stephen, if I like GC, then GDX, XME, I'll look for similar zones to get long. I want to trade those in the direction of the metal. All right, Nike, sure. We were day trading Nike the other day. I like Nike a lot. It's a part of the XLY. Nike is actually more attached to the NASDAQ than it is anything else because the XLY, in terms of indices, because the XLY is, interestingly enough, the second heaviest weighted sector in the NASDAQ. Do I like Nike? I don't have proximity to a level quite yet that I can do anything with. I need an oversold Nike. I need a DPMR zone or an oversold slow stochastic in a Darvis zone. You'll notice we're in a Darvis zone right now. So you'll see here between 123.60 and 123.20, we've got two Darvis automated support and resistance levels that are saying, hey, gang, this is where buyers could step in. I would love to see a V-score or a slow stow confirm that. I don't have that right now. So then I ask myself, is there anything on the 1 hour that might help? Because that's my other short-term swing trading time frame. And no, so that's going to be tricky. Although I do like the buy. I do like the buy setup, Sheila. I want to be long. I just got to see if I can get a confirmation of support and then get long calls. All right, Jay, good morning. Great call on the 6E, heading towards 980 a couple of days ago. Just to compliment. Yeah, I hope that it does not come across as predictive trading because I'm not trying to call, I'm not Babe Ruth at the plate trying to call my shot. What I am trying to say is here's where support and resistance are. And that's, I believe, all we were trying to take advantage of. And I still want to get long 6E. I appreciate it. Thank you, Adventure West. I do try to be as transparent as possible, as process-driven as possible. So I'm not just pulling analysis that's really opinion masquerading around his analysis, but rather I'm showing you all the data. I'm showing you all the levels. We're not just relying on price. We're looking at time and timing. We're looking at volatility. We're looking at price-based volume. I appreciate it. Gypsy, Apple. I like to, so what do we have? We had Apple release earnings after the bell yesterday, right? So the first day of widespread access to Apple, meaning, it's 9:34 trading hours, is today. So today's the first opportunity traders will have to react to Apple. If it's a before the bell release, then they have that session to do that. But today is really Apple's first day of trading after earnings. I like to let that day go by. I like to have at least one session between my trade and that earnings hot zone. So Monday would be where I would start to think about whether or not I can play Apple. And I want to be long. Ideally, I'd like to get long Apple. All right. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Let's see. Avi says we are not allowed to short ES. Right. So for those of you wondering, Rob, what's this allowed to thing you talk about? I can find zones to the up and down side of a market, but at the end of the day, it's really the underlying structure that's going to dictate, quote unquote, what I'm allowed to do. Part of my process as a trader is to filter down to, after looking at indicators and zones and everything else, filter down to what is the path of least resistance and pick a side, right? So Avi, am I not allowed to short ES while it is double green? That is, yeah, absolutely. You got it. Right now we went yellow. We're still not double green yet on the 5-minute. We're yellow on the daily. So right now it's still neutral. Yes. But it seems overextended when is that the slow stochastic? STS is sloping down. Can I talk about double green? I'm not quite sure what your question is. Can I talk about double green rules? Day trade only? Long only. Avi, you got it. It's long only. It's absolutely long only. So if I've got a double green 1 hour, long only on the 1 hour, and they're separate. Please don't think, well, if the 1 hour is neutral or down, I can't buy a double green on a daily. Or if the 5 minutes neutral or down, I can't buy a double green on the 60. Each time frame is an independent, plane of existence, right? When it comes to that particular symbol. So if I've got a double green on the daily, would I like to be long? I would absolutely prefer long trades, but it doesn't mean I'm limited to them on the other time frames, right? Each time frame has a read, and I will use that as the primary reason to be a bull or a bear, to be a buyer or seller for that time frame. So thanks for the question. All right, next up, can we take a look at Tesla? Sure. All right, so if I take a look at Tesla here, Tesla's still a dumpster fire, gang, on the daily. So let's go from right to left, longest time frame that I'm looking at for a short-term swing, below the 200, red trend. I mean, Tesla's path of least resistance on the daily is down. And here's a great example of what Avi was asking or mentioning, I believe. Red trend. All I'm allowed to do, gang, when I say allowed, it is by design. Your trading filter, your trading process should actually not be yielding you with more opportunity and more symbols and more things to consider. It should be like a filter. What does a water filter do? It removes the impurities. It removes things, right? Well, think of your trading process as a filter. It should just keep removing things that we could consider. That's the way I've designed what I teach in the mastery or the futures room or in my classes. So at this point, I've filtered out via the multi-trend, via the 200 propulsion, the possibility for a buy on the daily. Could I buy an oversold 60-minute setup? Absolutely. Am I going to be buy only as a day trader on the 5-minute chart? Do you see how each one of these time frames is a different slice of psychology of this symbol? Remember, the daily time frame we're going to take for days, if not weeks or longer. The 1 hour might be a handful of days. The 5-minute might be a couple of hours. So the trend on that time frame is the most important thing. I do not believe in, nor do I use multiple time frame confirmation. You'll see that each one of these is an individual psychology, right? And you know what? I look at it this way. Let's say the first 5 minutes of your day getting out of bed were awful. Right? 5 minutes of awful. Are you going to say, oh, the rest of my day is going to be awful? You're going to say, you know what? Let's play it out. I got 1,440 minutes in this day, right? And yet multiple time frame confirmation sort of like, well, if the 5 minutes doing this, and then clearly the 60 minutes going to do that, and the daily is going to do that. Or the other way around. Oh, if my week has been awful, there's no way I'm pulling out of this. The rest of the month's going to be awful. So when you apply that thinking of multiple time frame to anything else, it doesn't make sense. Anything could change on a dime. What matters is matching up the time frame to the time horizon, matching up the interval of the chart to how long that sentiment or momentum or trend can continue. The longer the time frame, the more possibility for continuation. The shorter, the less possibility, right? Things can change very quickly on a 5-minute time frame. I hope that makes sense, gang, because, again, the way that I look at the market, that's how I look at it. And so when I look at Tesla, it's a great example, Praveen, of three different psychologies at play in the same symbol. And then you're going to say to yourself, well, if I want a longer term view of Tesla, it's going to be a short. I want to short off resistance. And if I want to be a little bit more nimble, long or short, I'm going to play the 1 hour, overbought, oversold, resistance, support. Great. The 1 hour is going to give you a different opportunity for, say, 1 to 3 days. And a 5-minute says buy only and maybe for the morning. Yes? Okay. I hope that makes sense, gang. Again, it's just a way that I view the market. I'm not saying it's the only way. I am saying it is my way. All right. So next up is Jay. I'm not sure where I'm going to get long ZB and ZN quite yet, but I do want to be long, to your point. Schwab, I love Kadar. I love the long side of the big banks. Now, Schwab may be a little different. Schwab might be a slightly different opinion. And that's because Schwab has been oddly hit harder than other big banks with the KRE. Now, you might recall when the KRE, the regional bank crisis, hit from early to mid-March, Schwab was one of the big bank names swept up in this conversation. So I've been avoiding Schwab. unlike JP Morgan, unlike Wells, unlike Citi, it's not, which have really not been as swept up in the KRE and the regional bank narrative. Schwab has been. So I would be very careful with Schwab for that reason. Yeah, RD, I know I want to be a buyer. I don't have a zone quite yet. I will continue to monitor where ultimately the ZB gives me support, preferably with the DPMRs, and then that could map to a ZB long calls on the ZB futures, or even TLT calls. All right, gang, that is a wrap. Thank you as always for being a part of the Charts and Coffee Caffeinate and Dominate show. By the way, in this entire show, those of you that are not familiar with the process that I have in the futures room or the Sector Secrets Mastery, we keep these notes going when I'm live trading in the room, so everyone can keep up with the levels that I'm watching and why, as well as notes and things that you can refer back to as you're learning how to trade, learning my process. Check out the replay back at the Simpler Trading YouTube channel or in the Sector Secrets Mastery. Gang, I will see you all soon. Be good to each other. Sunday, This Week in the Markets live show, 6 p.m. All right, gang. Until then.